Okay, we're live. Good evening, and welcome to a special meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Posteri.
Present.
Councilmember Lester.
Present.
Councilmember Bendo.
Present.
Vice President Treston.
Yes, and may I also ask we all do a mic check, please?
President McGinnis.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Donna Gaden and Corporation Counsel Richard Barrios. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
Councilwoman Postoli, can you please lead us in the pledge? Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, the council would ask that we take a moment of silence in light of the horrific event that took place in Uvalde, Texas earlier today. The families, victims, and friends are in our prayers. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay.
Okay. Our first item this evening is a resolution authorizing the adoption of a capital improvement program for 5 years from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2027 inclusive.
Do we have any questions from the council regarding the capital plan? Any questions from the public? Okay.
Next item? Okay. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the adoption of the operating budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023, appropriating sums set forth therein and determining and fixing the real estate tax levy. And I believe we have a motion on this item?
Yeah, I move to adopt the errata sheet and adjust the budget accordingly in accordance with the errata
Excuse
sheet.
me, Mr. Bendo, can you just check
Turn
your
your mic
mic?
It is on.
Okay.
Oh, all right, I'll get closer. I move to adopt the errata sheet and adjust the budget accordingly in accordance with the errata sheet.
Second?
I will.
Voting. Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
And just so everyone knows, the total amount of the budget didn't change at all. This was just updating the budget to reflect some updates that have occurred since they initially started doing the department budgets back earlier in the year. So this just reflects the reality of where things are today.
Do we have any questions from the council regarding item number 2 at this time? Okay. I just have a comment here. This is regarding the adoption of the operating budget. I went back to the Division of Local Government and School Accountability report of the City of Long Beach financial condition from December 2019. This was issued by the Office of the New York State Comptroller. I just want to read a section of this report to you, which talks about how does a council adequately manage financial condition. A key measure of a city's financial condition is its level of fund balance, which in general terms is the difference between revenues and expenditures accumulated over time. It is important for the council to adopt a policy that addresses the level of fund balance to be maintained in each fund, and to use the policy in the annual budgeting process to help ensure that fund balance levels are adequate. The council should consider the accumulation of fund balance for future needs, such as unanticipated expenditures and/or revenue shortfalls. When fund balance is appropriated, the expectation is that there will be an operating deficit, i.e. expenditures exceeding revenues, financed by the appropriated fund balance. A continuous decline in unassigned fund balance indicates a deteriorating financial condition and limits the city's ability to absorb unexpected financial events. Likewise, When recurring expenditures such as separation payments are paid for with debt, financial condition deteriorates. Once the budget has been adopted, the council should monitor the budget by reviewing budget to actual reports during the course of the year. The council should inquire about revenues and expenditures not meeting budgeted expectations and make any necessary budgetary amendments before financial condition is negatively affected. So again, this was explicit direction from the New York State Office of Comptroller to the Long Beach City Council, of which I wasn't even on at the time. I want to take you to page 9 of the report, which is available on the website, where it says, what do we recommend? The council should, 1, adopt structurally balanced budgets which contain realistic estimates of revenues and finance recurring expenditures, including separation payments with recurring operating revenues instead of debt. 2, familiarize itself with the city's adopted fund balance policy. 3, obtain and review monthly controller statements on the city's financial condition as required by the city charter. 4, ensure that all interfund advances are authorized and paid back by the end of the fiscal year as required by the general municipal law. 5, develop a plan for the water and sewer funds to repay the interfund advances from the general fund. And the council and city officials should, 6, replenish and maintain fund balance in accordance with the city's fund balance policy. So this is the stuff I read on the weekend, and this is why I take this job very, very seriously and my financial fiduciary responsibility to the city. So this is what I think about when I review the budget line by line. I also want to comment that this is my third budget cycle on the council, and I find the work of the city and the city administration improving and amazing every single year. We had 100 questions from the council, or over 100 questions, which you can see on the website. We had multiple sessions. Our budget is realistic, and that's because we have professional staff that is helping us guide us through this process. So I have confidence in this budget. I have confidence in the people that are running this city. I am angry that we have to have an increase, but I have to remember that I have a moral responsibility, and I stand with my moral responsibility to pass a responsible budget with no borrowing for separation payments. Any comments from the council? Any comments or questions from the public on this item?
Next item. Okay. Item 3 is a resolution adopting a petty cash fund policy for the city of Long Beach.
All right, good evening, everyone. Rich Berrios. The next 3 items on the agenda are all internal policies. This incident one, petty cash policy, already references sections of the Code of Ordinances and Charter that are relevant, and also incorporates our current purchasing and procurement policy. I believe we may have one amendment on the floor. So to section number 3, sub 9, add as the last sentence in that section, quote, such reconciliation shall occur at least annually and or as needed. Dave, I have this written down for you.
So I have a motion? Is that what I need?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Hold on. I'm not on that sheet. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Liz,
Liz.
and then John seconded.
John, second, okay. Excuse me, voting. Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so amended. Wonderful. And with that, the petty cash policy essentially enables departments to make small purchases.
I'm
This is
sorry,
under-
Mr. Berrios, could you also use the microphone?
Absolutely, my fault. The purpose and intent of this policy is to enable departments to make small purchases in instances where the procurement policy or purchasing department can't otherwise procure those items. Very rare instance, but it's nice to have a policy in place to account for that. With that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Okay.
Item 4 is a resolution adopting a vehicle usage policy for the City of Long Beach.
Good evening again. As referenced, this is the second of the policies, a vehicle usage policy. Just for everyone's reference, the police and fire departments and emergency response vehicles will have their own standalone policies. I believe there are amendments on the floor for this one as well. Dave, it would be Section 7, subsection 2, page 4. On the 5th line, add, quote, and approve, close quote, after, quote, the city council will annually review, close quote.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Apostoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
And with that, I'll take any questions from the council or the public.
Do we have any questions from the council on the vehicle uses policy? Okay. Any questions from the public? Okay.
Item 5 is a resolution adopting a public relations communications policy for the City of Long Beach.
Hello and good evening again. So this policy is essentially, I'll just read the policy statement, just give you an idea of what it's about. The City of Long Beach has a responsibility for providing the public with accurate, timely, consistent information of public interest at all times, especially during times of emergency. So in furtherance of that, the city is establishing this public relations policy, which sets forth some of the protocols and procedures for communication between the city, the public, and the media. There is also an amendment to this policy, I believe. Dave, Section 3, Sub 6. Third line, please add, quote, and releases, close quote, after, quote, substance of the press inquiries, close quote. Got one more. Let me know when you're ready.
Sorry, substance of,
Substance of the press inquiries. Okay. Close quote. And one more amendment. Let me know.
good.
Second amendment would be to Section 9, Sub 4. Third line, request is to add, quote, volunteer, comma, or intern, close quote, after, quote, no other city employee. And that's it.
Do I have a motion?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Apostoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
All right, and with that overview of the policy statement, again, all three of these policies that we've discussed came recommended, I guess, by our capital markets advisors, cities, CMA. They shared that with us. We've compiled it, bounced it across all the departments for feedback, and unions as well, yes. And with that, yeah, any questions from the council or the public?
No questions from the council. Any questions from the public? All right, no questions.
Okay, on to the voting. Item 1 is a resolution authorizing the adoption of a capital improvement program for 5 years from July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2027 inclusive. Who will introduce and move the adoption of this item?
I will.
Second?
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Apostoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
There are numerous projects in what we're voting on not all of which I agree on, so I'm going to have to vote no.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the adoption of the operating budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022, to ending June 30th, 2023, appropriating sums set forth therein and determining fixing the real estate tax levy. To introduce and move the adoption of this item as amended.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting. Councilmember Apostolo.
I just wanted to echo President McGinnis's statement in regard to getting to this budget, and as someone who how about now? Better? As someone, a new council person who has participated in this process here for the first time, I have to say that it is something we, the council and the staff, the administration, took very seriously. We all poured over it for months, asking questions, holding meetings, and I'm confident this administration has gotten us to a balanced budget where revenues equal expenses, and that's a very significant accomplishment in this city's history. And if it weren't for the separation payouts, we would have met the tax cap, which is something I am also personally invested in. But there's no magic bullet here, as we all know. There's work to be done. I am confident that we'll get to a place where we can do that. And with that all in mind and being said, I vote yes.
Councilmember Lester.
I'd like to make a brief statement. On September 18th, 2012, almost 10 years ago, Newsday carried an article titled, "Long Beach Mulls Another Tax Increase." It was a story about Long Beach's continual rise in taxes because of the deficit it was facing. At that time, it asked for New York State Senate to approve the deficit financing request that had already been refused the prior June. Long Beach was told by our Senate representative that, quote, "We continue to believe that every level of government should be balancing its budget by reducing spending, not by raising taxes or taking on additional debt," close quote. In fact, a sitting city council member at that time stated that the city should instead consider cost cutting because, quote, "It seems like it's being laid completely on the taxpayer," close quote. Here we are 10 years later and in debt over $400 million, and once again coming to the taxpayers demanding an increase that is over the cap. I will admit that there is no question we are in a much better position than we were 10 years ago, but once again it's being laid completely on the taxpayer. I have to state that in reality, the federal, state, and county governments have been very generous to us, and I don't think anyone disputes that without their help we would not be able to operate this city. But depending on outside help is not an enviable position to be in. While I applaud the fact that for the first time in years we are not borrowing for separation pay, a promise that was made by candidates over 3 years ago, to me the fact that we are told we cannot live without the amount New York State has determined is appropriate for operating a municipality disappoints me greatly. As you are aware, I have brought up the topic of cutting costs for years now, but it just does not seem to go anywhere. Those of you who watched the beach fee hearings saw how the city was not able to cut 1 penny from a $5 million+ budget to operate 3 miles by 100 yards of sand and 2.2 miles of boardwalk for less than a 3-month season. I know we have heard numerous reasons why not a penny could be cut, but when you reach into your pocket each year for your taxes, if you're anything like me, you question that logic. I also know that we are aware that our property taxes are not the only thing we pay to keep the city going. Many of us pay over $1,000 a year for water and sewer and hundreds of dollars for garbage fees. On top of that, we must now pay 70% more than 2 years ago to get on our beaches. We are continually being told that if we don't pay these additional fees, we just have to raise the taxes, as if the concept of cutting costs is something that's simply unimaginable. Every time someone comes up with something to cut, we are met with pushback on why it cannot be done. This year we have budgeted $4.1 million in overtime costs, and even the state feels that that number is unrealistically low. As a city, we are spending millions and millions of dollars that we expect back from the federal, state, or county government, but it is solely to benefit our city. For our sewer system alone, we are borrowing $123 million that we intend to get back in grants. We are also spending many millions of dollars for consultants, for which we have to depend on the generosity of the state to help us out. According to the recent report we prepared for Moody's, at the end of fiscal year 2021, which is the last year completed, we had budgeted $83.6 million for expenditures, but in actuality only spent $81.1. I applaud the fact that we spent almost $2.5 million less than we had budgeted, but that doesn't seem to have lessened the taxpayers' burden this year. We also budgeted to receive $83.6 million in revenues, but actually received $87.7, which is $4 million more. If you look at this year's budget, we are receiving $3.5 million more in state aid and $1.8 million more in federal aid than we did the prior year. Also, employee benefit costs have come down by almost $300,000, which has to do with the stock market's great year last year. Yet that does not seem to have helped the taxpayers this year either. The amount proposed to be collected for real property tax, other real property tax items, and non-property tax items still is going up by over $4 million this year. And as bad as it is for the homeowner taxpayers, our commercial taxpayers are suffering a double-digit increase again, as they have for each of the past several years. The commercial water and garbage collection costs are also skyrocketing. If we look at the departmental expenditures budgeted for this year, they have increased by $2.7 million, which is a 5.9% increase. In fact, the general fund operating budget went up from the 2021 amount of $83.6 million to the 2022 amended budget of $96.7, an increase of spending of over $13 million in 1 year. Going back historically to the 2017-2018 budget, the tax levy was then $36.7 million. This year it is budgeted for $53.1 million, a 45% increase. For every $3,000 you paid in taxes in the 2017-18 budget, you are now paying $43.50 to the city. Inflation and wages have not gone up at that rate. And whatever tax levy goes up this year will continue in perpetuity, and each subsequent year's tax levy will be on top of that. Next year we have the Haberman judgment we have to borrow $75 million for. The fact is we are borrowing that in the beginning of the year, the fiscal year, and will not be paying for it in at least till the following year, which means at the time we will have to start paying the $75 million plus the interest accrued over that year. Although this type of debt will not be considered in the tax cap, it certainly will be felt in the wallet. I know that after I speak, you will hear what a great budget this is and how a $219 increase for real property taxes alone is only a few pennies a day. But every bucket is made up of a collection of drops, and that kind of thinking does not ease anyone's burden. The tax cap was enacted in 2012 to try to put some sort of limit on the taxing of the people of the state of New York. Under a study by the Rockefeller Institute of Government in 2019, it had conservatively saved the taxpayers of the state of New York over $25 billion. The purpose of the tax cap was to try to get some relief for the taxpayers by, in essence, forcing municipalities to live within a budget. Every time a municipality overrides the tax cap, they are defeating that purpose. Long Beach has continually had a tax levy over the 2% mark and is continuing that pattern with this budget. I, for one, am not convinced that there is nothing we can do to save money. I know, after I speak, you'll hear numerous reasons why we cannot cut anything, but I don't really believe that's true. It is for those reasons that I vote no to increase the taxes beyond the cap. Therefore, I vote no.
Councilmember Bendo.
I don't have a prepared statement, but I guess I am going to say something. When I got on the council, these things basically weren't worth the paper they were printed on. Numbers were put in there to make the budget work, meaning you put in whatever revenue you needed to justify what you wanted to spend. If you thought you were going to spend more, it's all right. Put in less than you really were going to spend because it made the budget work. That's the way we budgeted. And because of that, we became the most fiscally distressed municipality in the state. The city was broke. We were borrowing money to make payroll and buy toilet paper for the bathrooms. That's how bad it was. Now, when we took over this administration 2 years ago, we said we were going to make the tough decisions to get this city back on track. That meant realistic budgets. That doesn't mean wishing some fairy comes down with a pot of gold to pay all our bills. The simple fact is, what comes in, what goes out has to equal what comes in. That's the way a good budget works, and that's not the way budgeting was done here. That is the way we have now tasked the city manager, the comptroller, and the staff to do things. Now, I understand some council people think maybe something, there could have been some cuts. You know what? We went through a multi-week process where we asked questions and made comments on the budget. I submitted 65 comments and questions on the budget, 65. And all of them were answered. We addressed them all. The budget was tweaked if it needed to be according to that. But I'll tell you what wasn't there, suggestions for new revenue streams from some other council members or suggestions for cuts. So those of you that have been coming to council meetings know for a long time, when you're standing on that side of the podium, when I was there, I came to council meetings for years, when you're standing there and you're saying, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, that's fine. But now when you get on this side of the podium, now it's your job to do something about it. And we are doing something about it. We're doing budgets now that actually make sense, that actually have the city functioning so we're not broke anymore. And no matter how much people, I get it, nobody likes a tax increase, and Councilman Lester is right. $200, even though it may only be a small amount each day, it all adds up. $200 here, a little bit more for the beach passes, a little bit more for water. I get it. We're paying it too. Same people. We're paying it like you are. But the simple fact is, we were living off of a credit card, which means your kids and your grandkids were going to be paying for the mistakes people were making now. We're not going to make those mistakes anymore. We're not going to go back to the way things were. So while, again, nobody up here wishes we had to increase people's taxes or increase fees, the simple fact is we are now doing responsible budgeting. And I'm sorry, but that's the term, responsible. And I, for one, am not going to go back to what we had 4 or 5 years ago when we had magical numbers in a budget. So, this is how we went from being, in 2 years, during a pandemic, which wreaked havoc on our economy, we went from the #1 fiscally distressed municipality in the state to cutting our fiscal stress score in half, where the state isn't really looking at us that much anymore. In 2 years, we did that. Previous administrations it took them years to get us into the mess. We're getting us out in 2. Well, not out. We're not out. We got more work to do. So this is a responsible budget. I get not all the council members may agree with that. This is a responsible budget that reflects reality of the world we live in, meaning what we spend, we have to take in that amount. So with that, I vote yes.
Vice President Treston.
I put my big boy pants on and I looked at the budget. I vote yes.
President McGinnis.
I've been coming to these meetings since about 2005, and I just watched in horror of what was going on up here when I asked questions and never got answers. And I never thought I'd be sitting up here on the other side where it could really make a difference. And thanks to many people in this community, I am here. and I'm not going to blow it. I have to make tough decisions, and I don't rubber stamp anything. I look over everything, talk to the staff every day, talk to my colleagues every day, and I'm here. We hired the right staff to make these decisions to move forward. And when you have a professional staff, they already give you the budget with the cuts. Because I've done this for 25 years, budgets. And they give you the realistic projections so that the fat is out. And that it's a lean budget. If they gave me a fat budget, it would have been 8%. It would have been an 8% increase from last year because that was roughly the rate of inflation versus last year, but they didn't. So they're not pulling anything over my eyes. And the thing is that when you do budgets, you work with department heads and staff, and you realize that they're trying to cut costs every single day. But they can't do it without leadership from the management team. And that's what's happening every single day. So yes, there are cuts. And I hope that someone in 15 years never knows who Mr. Haberman is, because I didn't when I moved here in 2005, but now he haunts my dreams, right? Because we got to figure out how to pay for something that when we didn't have the right staff in place, things happened, right? So we're here, I'm here every day to make sure the future doesn't have to pay the costs of the mistakes from the past. And that means making tough decisions today and making responsible decisions. And I'm so proud of this team and this council. And I'm not going to do what's politically expedient and just say no, right? Because I could, right? The budget already passed. But that's not who I am. So I vote yes.
Item 3 is a resolution adopting a petty cash fund policy for the City of Long Beach. Will introduce and move the adoption of this item as amended.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Item 4 is a resolution adopting a vehicle usage policy for the City of Long Beach. Will introduce and move the adoption of this item excuse me, as amended.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
And finally, item 5 is a resolution adopting a public relations communications policy for the City of Long Beach. Will introduce and move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
We'll make a motion to close the meeting.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Voting, Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's not like super. So I think, as you know, I ran the board with COAD for a long time.